November 20th, 1947, Westminster Abbey, 2,000 guests, 10,000 seed pearls on a wedding dress, 200 million people pressed against wireless sets across the British Empire, and 40 miles south, in a brick Victorian hospital in Surrey, two young women sit in a ward. They cannot speak. They do not know their cousin is getting married today. They have been here for 6 years. They will be here for 40 more. This is the fairy tale that required invisible cousins. Princess Elizabeth was 21 years old, born in 1926, heir presumptive to the throne, in love with a naval officer named Philip. Britain was desperate for her wedding. The war had been over for 2 years, but the country still looked like it had lost. Bombed out buildings, bread queues, gray exhaustion everywhere you looked. Rationing was worse than during the actual fighting. Bread itself had never been rationed during the Blitz. Now it was. The nation needed pearls. The nation needed pageantry. The nation needed proof that beautiful things could still happen in Britain. The palace announced the engagement on July 9th, 1947. 4 months to plan the wedding of the century. 4 months to assemble the guest list. 4 months to design the dress. 4 months to make sure certain names never appeared on any list. Here is what the wireless broadcast did not mention. Princess Elizabeth's mother was Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, Scottish aristocracy. Her brother John had died in 1930. John had 5 children, 4 daughters, 1 son. 2 of those daughters had severe intellectual disabilities. Nerissa Jane Irene Bowes-Lyon, born 1919, never learned to speak beyond a few babyish words. Catherine Juliet Bowes-Lyon, born July 4, 1926. Same year as Princess Elizabeth, mental age assessed at 3 to 6 years old. In June 1941, when Nerissa was 22 and Catherine was just 15, their widowed mother placed them in Royal Earlswood Hospital, a large Victorian institution. Redhill, Surrey, 40 miles from Buckingham Palace. They were not alone. On the same day, 3 of their cousins entered the same hospital, the Fane sisters. Idonia, Etheldrada, Rosemary, 5 young women from connected aristocratic families, committed together, wartime Britain, domestic servants conscripted into war work, private nurses unavailable, 2 widowed sisters facing impossible caregiving choices. The institutionalization may have begun as practical necessity. What followed was not necessity. What followed was erasure, Burke's peerage, the authoritative genealogical reference for British aristocracy, the book that documented every noble bloodline, the book that mattered to people who cared about such things, which in 1947 was everyone who mattered. Burke's peerage listed Nerissa Bowes-Lyon as having died in 1940. She was committed in 1941, a year after her supposed death. Burke's peerage would list Catherine as deceased in 1961. She would still be alive, still in the hospital, still breathing in Surrey, while the official record said she was in a grave. The false deaths predated the wedding. By November 1947, Princess Elizabeth's first cousins had been erased from the family tree for 6 years. The genealogical record was clean. No inconvenient branches, no uncomfortable questions about hereditary fitness. This mattered more than modern audiences might understand. Prince Philip had his own institutional shadow. His mother, Princess Alice of Battenberg, had been diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1930, institutionalized in Berlin, then Switzerland. She had been released. She would attend her son's wedding, but court whispers remembered. Philip's family tree carried what the genetic thinking of the era called a taint. One set of questions about mental illness in the bloodline was manageable. 2 would have been catastrophic. Philip's mother was one question mark. The Bowes-Lyon cousins would have been 2 more. 3 institutionalized relatives between the bride and groom. 3 demonstrations that mental instability could strike even the most exalted families. The fairy tale required clean optics. The cousins were the cost. The guest list took shape through the summer. 2,000 names, European royalty who had survived their thrones being destroyed, British nobles whose families had witnessed centuries of royal weddings, diplomats, military heroes, each name a calculation, each invitation an implied approval. Among the names submitted, Diana Bowes-Lyon, 23 years old, a niece of the Queen, third daughter of the late Honor John Bowes-Lyon. Diana was elegant, presentable, capable of speech. Diana could appear in photographs. Diana could serve as a bridesmaid. Her name was approved. Her two disabled sisters were not submitted for consideration. Their names did not appear on any draft. Their existence was not acknowledged. Burke's peerage said they were dead. So they were dead. Diana smiled for the cameras at bridesmaid fittings. Her sisters sat in a ward in Surrey. Norman Hartnell designed the dress. The royal couturier approached the task as national statement, inspiration from Botticelli's Primavera, beauty rising from destruction, spring from winter, hope after despair. Ivory silk, 10,000 seed pearls imported from the United States, a 15-foot train, star-patterned embroidery that would shimmer under the Abbey lights. Every pearl a symbol, every stitch carrying meaning, British craftsmanship, royal splendor, tradition unbroken despite the bombs. Princess Elizabeth collected clothing coupons for the material. Rationing applied even to royalty. Brides across Britain contributed their own coupons. The palace returned the donations, regulations, but the gesture mattered. The nation was invested. The nation wanted this wedding to be real. While fittings continued in London, 40 miles south, the institutional routine continued unchanged. Nerissa was 28 by November. Katherine had turned 21 in July. The same month the engagement was announced. Neither could comprehend what was happening in the world of ballrooms and fittings. Neither could read newspapers. Neither could understand wireless broadcasts. Royal Earlswood operated on its own schedule, founded in 1847 as the National Asylum for Idiots and Imbeciles, renamed later to soften the language. Same function, same purpose. Scheduled meals, scheduled rest, minimal stimulation. No expectation of development. Nerissa and Katherine had become permanent residents. Their sister Diana had become a bridesmaid. The week before the wedding brought final preparations. Westminster Abbey cleaned and arranged. Medieval stones prepared for the first major royal ceremony since the 1937 coronation. The BBC coordinated the most ambitious broadcast in history. 200 million listeners, the largest audience ever assembled for any event. Foreign royalty arrived. The guest list represented the most glittering assembly of titles since before the war. Kings and queens, princes and princesses, dukes and duchesses, the surviving aristocracy of Europe. Nothing would mar this day. No mechanical failures, no inconvenient facts, no hidden cousins visible in the frame. Thursday, November 20th, 1947. Gray and cold over London. But the crowds had gathered before first light. Hundreds of thousands along the Mall, down Whitehall, around Parliament Square, breath visible in November air. These were people who had survived the Blitz, lost sons and brothers and fathers, queued for rations, slept in tube stations, emerged into a peace that felt more like exhaustion than victory. They needed this day. They needed the pearls and the pageantry. They needed proof that beautiful things could still happen. They needed the fairy tale to be real. Princess Elizabeth departed Buckingham Palace, seated beside her father, the king. Streets lined 6 deep, 8 deep, the roar of voices rising and falling as the coach passed. She wore Hartnell's masterpiece, ivory silk, 10,000 pearls, 15-foot train, 21 years old, heir presumptive, about to marry the man she loved, 40 miles south, Royal Earlswood Hospital. Ward routine continued. Nerissa and Katherine passed the morning in wordless sameness. Unaware this day was different. Unaware their cousin was processing toward Westminster Abbey. Unaware of anything beyond the walls they had known since 1941. The ceremony began. The Archbishop led the vows. The Abbey choir lifted voices trained for transcendence. 2,000 guests witnessed the exchange of rings, the signing of registers, the transformation of Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten into His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. BBC microphones captured every word, the Archbishop's invocations, the couple's responses, prayers for their union. 200 million listeners heard their future queen pledge herself. Canada, Australia, India, South Africa, the furthest reaches of empire. People gathered around a wireless sets, largest audience in broadcasting history. Not one listener knew the bride had first cousins institutionalized since 1941. Not one knew Burke's peerage listed them as dead. The erasure was complete. The couple emerged onto the Abbey steps, the roar audible across central London, Elizabeth radiant in pearls, Philip resplendent in naval uniform. The cameras captured the image. This was the moment promised, the reward for 6 years of war, 2 years of austerity, beautiful princess, handsome prince, continuity in a world that had tried to destroy everything stable, return procession, crowds denser, cheers louder, need more desperate, Buckingham Palace balcony, waving to the masses, royal family arranged in perfect formation behind them. The fairy tale achieved everything it was designed to achieve. Wedding breakfast, 150 guests, staterooms, 9-foot wedding cake, sugar still rationed, toasts, speeches, congratulations from European aristocracy. Diana Bowes-Lyon celebrated, the bridesmaid, the presentable sister, the cousin who could speak. Her institutionalized sisters were not discussed. 2,000 names on the guest list. Not one of them Nerissa or Katherine. The family portrait was complete. The frame contained only what it was designed to contain. The newspapers tracked every available detail. Appropriate discretion about private matters. The fairy tale continued its trajectory. Beautiful wedding. Promise of heirs. The contrast with Royal Earlswood required no effort to maintain. November 21st, Nerissa and Katherine woke in the same ward. Same as November 20th. Same as every day since June 1941. Institutional meals. Institutional schedules. Institutional care from staff who knew their names but had no reason to know their family connections. Their cousin was married to a duke. Their cousin had worn 10,000 pearls. They sat in Surrey, 40 miles, an entire universe. Princess Elizabeth returned to public life. The wedding accomplished its purpose. Post-war Britain had its fairy tale. Proof the monarchy could survive. Reassurance that beauty still had a place. No article mentioned Royal Earlswood. No journalist questioned why 2 first cousins were absent from 2,000 guests. The erasure held. The fairy tale's foundation was secure. But the fairy tale had not anticipated one thing. The cousins did not die on schedule. 1952. Princess Elizabeth became Queen Elizabeth II. Coronation broadcast worldwide. Nerissa and Katherine remained in Royal Earlswood. 1977. Silver Jubilee. 25 years on the throne. Nerissa and Katherine remained in Royal Earlswood. Burke's peerage still listed them as deceased. Nerissa dead since 1940. Katherine dead since 1961. Except Katherine was breathing in Surrey throughout the 1960s, throughout the 1970s, throughout the 1980s, 1986. Nerissa Bowes-Lyon died, age 66, 45 years institutionalized. She was buried in a grave marked only with a plastic tag and a serial number. No Bowes-Lyon attended her funeral. No family member acknowledged her passing. Then, 1987. The Queen celebrated her Ruby Jubilee, 40 years of marriage. The fairy tale had held 4 children, grandchildren, the promise of Westminster Abbey fulfilled, and then the Sun published a photograph, Katherine Bowes-Lyon, 60 years old, institutionalized since before the wedding, still alive, still in Royal Earlswood, still listed as dead in Burke's peerage. The revelation exploded across British media. The Queen's hidden cousins, the family's secret shame, the erasure exposed after 46 years. The Queen Mother was 87 years old, the former Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, whose brother had fathered these women. She did not comment. She never visited. She would live another 15 years without acknowledging her institutionalized nieces. But here is the twist the fairy tale never anticipated. Katherine outlived her. The Queen Mother died in 2002. Katherine Bowes-Lyon, the cousin hidden to protect the 1947 wedding, The woman whose existence was erased so 10,000 pearls could sparkle without asterisks survived until 2014, 73 years in Royal Earlswood, longer than most marriages, longer than entire careers, longer than the British Empire itself lasted after her commitment. Catherine outlived the Queen Mother by 12 years. The silent witness survived long enough to see the monarchy that hid her become synonymous with scandal. Diana's death, the tabloid wars, Meghan and Harry, Prince Andrew. The institution that erased her to protect its image spent her final years desperately managing crises that made hidden cousins look quaint. And now, when the 1947 wedding footage appears in documentaries, it cannot be shown without the shadow. Every anniversary screening carries the asterisk. The pearls and pageantry share the screen with institutional photographs, plastic grave markers, hospital wards, a serial number instead of a name. The guest list had been executed perfectly. 2,000 names. Not one of them Nerissa or Katherine, but the absent guests had the last word. They always do.